Hey everyone, Psycho here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. So, picking up where we left off, I got that new proportion I was happy with the legs, where it's not just the pelvis, the hips to the crotch to the knee that's shortened, it's also the shoulder to the elbow is shortened as well. So I've got that new proportion that I'm playing around with, and it is working well, and just experimenting, how does this look? Like, for instance, from the back, how does it look? And not so good, but it's a lot of guesswork thinking about this, like pushing out the calves, making the calves humongous and making the arms bigger as well, so it gets like pretty small but like bigger, and then it gets like it's kind of wide but not really, and then it goes thinner. I think I should push this even wider, but anyway, and then it gets really fat for the forearm, very Popeye muscle proportions, I guess. And I really like this figure. Again, just trying to put on clothes from imagination, and you can see how fat the calves are here, and they're pretty much as fat as her thighs. In this case, I think they're even fatter. And maybe that's a bit too much of an exaggeration, but it doesn't look bad. Like, I look at this and it's like, I know this is super fat, and still, it's okay. It's okay. And then here, I wanted to draw a silhouette of a figure, because I know what a normal figure, I know their silhouettes. We see the silhouettes of people in proportions all the time. When they're far away, they're basically registered as a silhouette. And so putting it in this was kind of eye-opening, like, oh, okay, this looks very weird, very insect-like. But it helps to be able to see things. And here, trying a fatter character, but then, again, keeping things different. Like, I realized I can't just have the same proportions. Even if it's the same character and they put on weight, they actually are going to have to change their proportion. And then here what I did was I wanted to do some thumbnails and bring in perspective, use this new proportion thing. There's the elbow. How does it land on a table? And then I started thinking about it. Like, I don't like doing backgrounds. This sort of requires more backgrounds than I'm comfortable with. So what if I just indicate the horizon? So here, that's what I've done. I've sort of brought these shapes, like made these shapes into graphic shapes, and they signify the vanishing points in the horizons. So, or horizon. And so here too. And it kind of worked. It's like, okay, that looks a lot more finished. This too, looks a lot more finished, but it's not actually a lot of work. It's not a bunch of background, but what the background does in a lot of pictures is it tells you information. It tells you where's the horizon, what type of lens are you looking through, and this graphic shape is doing the same thing. So I thought, that's kind of cool. That's a nice experiment. And trying it here as well, again, just playing around with things, because I tend to do that. I like this character. I actually colored this later. And here, I'm thinking about the foot and just like, okay, if you have to simplify it, how would I simplify this into shapes? Like, do I, like, this is more realistic, I suppose. Do I just like go chick, and block it out? Is this more correct? And I like this one the best. But yeah, just trying different shapes. And then here, I was doing a tutorial for how to connect the legs to the torso. I'm just trying to make sure I knew what I was talking about. And you can see how, those tutorials sort of form. It's usually a few weeks of me playing around, trying to figure something out, and then practicing, and then, okay, now I know what I can actually talk about. So, more thumbnails. Don't really like this one, just trying to experiment with detailed things, like, oh, what if she has these, I don't know what they are, but more decorative patterns. Here, playing with graphic shapes. What if there's like a circle behind her? What does that do? Here, doing that thing that I talked about with the perspective, and then just blocking it in as graphic shapes. Yeah, I don't really like these ones. This one's okay though. But, you know, the proportions aren't great. The legs look too long. It just doesn't look appealing to me. And then this one's from reference, but trying to keep it, you know, in my style. And yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm getting to the point where it's like, the reference ones are starting to look better. And this one's also from reference. And the hips are super pushed though. Like, everything's really pushed. But still working. Again, looking at the silhouette. Trying to do this skinnier arm thing and then fatter. And something I notice when I use reference is it's really, really hard for me to remember all my points. Like, how skinny is the neck? How skinny are the arms? And I tend to just... they get watered down. So that's something that I fight against. It's because here, see, without reference, it gets a lot more pushed. Some more, you know, physical hand-eye coordination exercises. Put 2 dots, try and connect them with a line. Some ellipses, try and find the minor and major axes. Again, trying to do the figure. And this one, I was thinking like, okay, so from top to bottom, where's the crotch in relation? Is it like 1, 2? It's almost like 3, 1/3 of the way down instead of 1/2 of the way. Some very silly hair. And here here's a guy and whatever, but here I'm playing around with, again, a heavier character, but a different shape. Instead of the same skeleton underneath, it's a bit different. And it's like, yeah, that's looking better. I guess I'm pretty much convinced that it's no longer about sticking to reality or even sticking to things like, oh, create a skeleton and then stick to that skeleton and observe the natural laws of physics and biology, and like, well, skeletons don't really change much as you gain weight and lose weight. Maybe a little bit in terms of like things getting pushed and pulled, but, and this is awful, but yeah, so, okay, forget physics, just do things, or forget biology and just do what looks appealing. Put art in front of science. And so this is, you know, playing around with guys, because I did too many girls, I think, or I just did a lot of, you know, playing around with the girls proportion, but not so much the guys. Younger kid. I think this is looking good. Here, it's the 2 side by side. This is a bit confusing. You can't really see his arm, but like this is the guy's arm, and then the girl's behind him with again, see, super small or smaller shoulders, and then he has super wide shoulders. Just super thin waist, and she has a super thin waist too, but hips are tiny and boxy, and hers are humongous. And here, I think, yeah, like that, again, it's playing around with the heavy character and those proportions. Like, yeah, that's cool. And this one I like as well. Just a face, but just keeping everything a bit more pointy. It's getting really much easier to be in this pointy drawing style thing. Like, this is just naturally what my hand wants to do now, because I've done it so many times, and that's what I was hoping for. Because naturally I'm very suited to curves and stuff, and I don't like this proportion. So I think you can train yourself out of anything, but you just got to be interested. Like, if I didn't like pointy stuff and I tried to keep drawing in this, it would probably be painful. But because it's something that I want to do, I want to get there eventually. It's like, no, this isn't bad. This is actually good, and I welcome the challenge. And then here, doing a shape and then trying to push it even further, make it even more appealing. Basic shapes again, trying to make them appealing. I don't know if this seems sort of dumb to be doing this, or maybe it's boring, or maybe it's just not easy to see what this does, but it is useful. I do find it very useful to do these. And then I thought, I don't really understand some of the arm connection, especially from the back, but also the armpit area. So I'm going to anatomy study, trying to figure it out. You know, it's boring and it's difficult, but you got to do it. And here, again, thumbnails and trying to make the crickets, small crickets, trying to do some perspective-y stuff. Like, oh, okay, so if that's the proportions, how does that, lay flat on the ground? That's really bad. And this is pretty nice, this gesture. It's cool. I don't know. This is okay. And then I was thinking, okay, so the guys, right, you have this big triangle, but if they bend down, that's not going to be a triangle anymore. It's going to be this diamond shape. So I wanted to understand what that looks like. So I started with a triangle and then sort of tipped it down, 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 so that we're looking down at it. And now it's more of this diamond shape. And that's what you get here too. See, you have the shoulders and they're at one point, at the points. And then here's the sternum at a point. And then here actually it would go in, but that's where the spine would be. So you still can resolve it sort of like a diamond though. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing to do. And, doing it again. Because it's not enough, and this is bad, but this is the first drawing. So it's not enough to be able to... I heard this quote somewhere, like, you don't do something until you get it right. You do it until you can't get it wrong. Or something like that, anyway. And that's the idea, Make this muscle memory. Because I need to do this a ton. Because I need to make up for lost time. Because if you think about it, if I was someone who, I was 12 years old and I kept drawing like this and this was my natural style, by the time I'm 20, I'm going to be really good. But that's 8 years and that's consistently doing it over and over again. So I don't have the luxury of that. So I need to do much more focused exercises. So here, I think this is from reference, maybe. But yeah, I think so. It's getting harder and harder to tell now. It's like, I don't even know if this is from reference. I don't know if it's not. I'm assuming this is from reference because it doesn't look the same. Like, it's more a thing of, I don't think I understand the figure this well yet for it to not be from reference. But this is not from reference. And yeah, you can tell. Usually when it's not from reference, I just have the hands going down. That's not good. So that's something I work on because I do... and here's just some more of that exercise with, putting dots on a page. You have 3 dots, you have squares. Where do you put them? What's the most appealing arrangement? It's very much arranging things. But anyway, I do life drawing from time to time and just try and notice more things now. Instead of drawing the figure as I see them, I look at them and try and observe what is a gesture or what are things that I don't do from imagination. And one of the things I noticed was the arms. I tend to put the arms down to the side or put them down in any way. And I started looking at people walking around and they really rarely have their arms just down doing nothing. They tend to be up and around and moving. So here what I decided to do was these are all studies, but I wanted to get the perspective down first as well as draw. And that was really interesting because what I noticed is, how these lines aren't very extreme. Like if I was doing this from imagination, I probably would have made these points much more extreme. So basically the vanishing points are much further outside. See, if you carried this line to a vanishing point and this one, they meet maybe around super far out on the edge. So that's important. So I did learn a lot from doing this, and I think it's good, but I kind of forgot it too. And also, there is something to be said for faking it. Like I think this one's just made up, and I made the perspective a bit more exaggerated so I get more interesting stuff going on. Actually, I think all 3 of these are made up. Yeah, they don't look as good as these top ones. So here I was trying to understand the forearm, and if you've seen my how to draw the forearm tutorial, you're seeing those are the fruits of this labor, just trying to understand it. I was using a tutorial by Funky Monkey on DeviantArt, and it's like, okay, get this and try and understand all the different views and do stuff from imagination, do stuff from my own style, but then try and overlay the correct anatomy. And it was really hard at first to try and remember all these patterns. It helped to have different colors ink. So I could like, okay, this one is that. Okay, this one is that. And it's going to the top of the hand. Again, just doing things from reference, but then looking for, okay, where are the muscles? Because it's, especially for women, it's very hard to see all the anatomy. But if you kind of have a sense of where things are supposed to be, like you've studied anatomy, and then you look at the figure, you can start to see just like subtle indications of, oh, that's where that muscle is. Maybe it's just a little, like maybe here, it was just a tiny shadow here. And that would indicate, oh, that's where this separates from this muscle. Because it's going to be covered with skin, so you're not going to get that much definition. And especially with women, they tend to be a lot more subtle in, how the muscles show. And here's some more stuff, just figures. And these feel a lot more loose. I was in a much more loose mood for this one. Just put in really quickly, trying to keep the energy, but also trying to keep the proportions. And some of these aren't that good, like these ones aren't that good, but this one's really cool, I think. It's a lot of energy, a lot of appeal. And this one. And this. And I figure, like, if my stuff has appeal now and gesture, it certainly didn't always, but the way I think you can get anything is just if you really like it, if you really admire it and you really work at it, you'll get it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's super important to you, you'll probably get it. So if making money with art is super important to you, you're probably going to spend time learning about business and marketing and stuff. For me, it wasn't, and it hasn't been so. It's harder when it comes to things like money, but for gesture, it's really important to me. So it doesn't matter if I still suck. I'm going to eventually get good gestures. It's just a matter of time because it's so important to me. This is cool. Energy. And this is not bad either. Oh, this is from Imagination. Imagination Day. Yeah. And some of the things are rubbing off, some of the studies that I did way back when of Joe Mad, it's starting to work. It's starting to stick. And then here, I decided to do some more composition studies. This is by Takehiko Hito Harada, and it's just a very basic composition. But I wanted to understand, like, how are they doing things? And this one's from Jalimuto, and this one's from Zazaza. Just trying to get their compositions. Like, what is it that they're doing that I'm not doing? How do their compositions work on the page? And in this case, it's like, oh, you're sort of cropping it at an interesting angle. Like here, it's cropped pretty interestingly. And in this case, it's like, no, it's just, if you get rid of this, it looks very plain. But because of the cast shadow on the ground and this shape, she's holding this, and then this, it just looks finished and it looks nice and very appealing. So this graphic design stuff, really got to learn this. And then I went back to my own composition things, and it's like, yeah. More, thinking about perspective and proportion, same thing, perspective. Perspective is very, very important. And, lighting, more figures, more gestures. More stuff. This is from reference, and the rest aren't. And that hair's nice. And it's almost becoming like a cliche now, or I don't know. How'd you call it? A signature? Like, this is, like, I do this hair and I don't really see many other people doing that, or anybody that I know anyway. And some of the stuff, like now this crazy proportions, like, yeah, okay. It's starting to look like, oh, I'm a thing that's not everyone else. And this looks like Jiminy Cricket. And then here, back to Joe Mad, because he's the best. I don't know. I think he's very amazing. So just drawing his stuff, but in my style, Spider-Man. My things are a bit skinnier. Like, that's what I'm noticing. His are already very pushed, but mine are even more pushed than that. So like this, for instance, His has a lot more room because the distance between the hip, the greater trochanter, and which is a notch on the femur, and the knee, that distance is a lot longer in Joe Mad stuff than in mine, and mine's a lot shorter, and meanwhile this is much longer, so I can't exactly do his poses anymore. And then here, what I did was, I did a study of Joe Mad here for the Hulk, and then I did my own, like as if I was looking at this and just doing it the way I thought was cooler. I don't know, maybe it sounds like, I don't mean to sound arrogant, like, oh, I as if I can make Joe Mad stuff even cooler, but I just did this as like, okay, this is how I would do it. I need a voice as well. I'm not going to be just a Joe Mad wannabe, even though I sort of am. And figures, ellipses, just manual things. Trying to get the squishies going, squishing the breasts together. It looks very strange with these big hips, like, oh, so the hips poke through almost all the time. And this character looks really appealing, this kid. That's great. I like that one. And this one too. That's very, very, like, I don't like the body. I don't like the arm. I don't like the hand. But that's really nice. And I noticed, maybe it's because my features are sort of like Indian, so I get more of this, like my nose goes down like this. It's not upturned. But I usually don't see characters with this feature. So it's something that I try and bring in. I'll make characters darker and just add more variety, because it's not, I don't know, I think it's kind of lame when you like get pencil crayons and they're like skin tone, but it's not even your tone. It's like, well, there's not just one skin tone. Anyway, so this is from reference and reference. Yes, reference. And these aren't. And trying to understand the squishy thing. It's still not getting it. Like, I keep doing studies. I keep trying to figure it out. I see people who do this well, and it sucks because I'm not one of them. And then some more arms, just making sure I don't forget things. How does the elbow work? Gotta keep up with the anatomy. As much as things can be pushed, they've still got to be based on correct things. So here, trying to do the squishy thing, like a finger. Like here, what I did is I just got my palm, and then I squished my finger into it to get like the squishy pattern. But it's like, no, it's still not, like there was too much shading required and it's not there. I feel like I need to be able to do this with just very few lines and virtually no shading, if any. It's not working. I'm trying to think of things here, like animated, like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then more compositions. This is cool. This is not like I still, I guess at this point I'm struggling a lot with the head turned, looking over your shoulder. This is okay. These two characters, this fatter one, this skinnier one. She's, I don't know, playing with her. Here I tried to do that thing with the cast shadow, adding a graphic element. I think it works. And here, more from reference. You can see now when it gets from reference, it's very, it's so stiff. I'm not a fan of it. And then these are something I want to do more. Something I want in the end for my artwork is to have not just one character, but sort of two characters, at least two, maybe three, but I kind of like two, and they have an interaction with each other. It's not just one character and that's it. And you just look at that. It's like, no, two characters and they're doing something, or anyway, but that's still a goal for later, because it's like, well, it doesn't matter. If I can't draw one character, what's the point of two characters, just do two characters poorly. And then here, what I realized, like I was doing stuff from reference, and it's like, yeah, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, but it looks different. And what I noticed is that when I draw from reference, it seems like the style actually changes a bit. Like, it's a bit more realistic. It's still sharp. It's still mine. But yeah, it's a bit more realistic, a bit more complex forms. Because like, compare it to this. Like, this is very simple. But this is a lot more interesting, I think. More complicated. And I started to feel like I have two styles. They're very close, but one is a bit more realistic and one is a bit more cartoony. So this one, I did the silhouette first, and it's like, okay, so this is when I look at reference, I tend to think like this. You can see how the arms are not as ballooned out. Yes, these are like shorter, but not as much. And this, the calf, it's still crazy and exaggerated, but less so than this. And this is the more cartoon one. And the heads are bigger. So I did this dot to indicate like this side is going to be the more realistic side, and this side is going to be the more cartoony side. And these two are the same character. So it's like, okay, in the more cartoony side, the hair is a lot more crazy. The eyes are bigger. Nose is smaller. And this one, it's like, yeah, they're still crazy, but less crazy. See here, the breasts break the form. Just going whoosh, and here they don't. The hips are wide here, but here they're super wide and super skinny in the waist. And then it's very, narrow. It's not tall at all. It's very short. And here, also the elbows around here, but in this case, it's like way up here, and the hands bigger. So it's like, yes, these are still the same artist, but just a bit different expressions in this one as well. Just more cartoony, even more cartoony, I think, just pushing it to an extreme. Like, okay, what can I do with this? And here, again, thinking of that multiple characters thing, this one didn't really work. Just like, a composition with multiple characters. And here, it looks like there's a ton of legs. It's really just like, should I put the legs like this or put the legs down like this? So there are more legs in this than there should be. But it's just experimenting, and then some affinity stuff. Spider-Man from imagination, trying to keep like cooler perspective. And these guys in a headlock, just trying to get characters playing with each other more. At first I was pretty nervous about this, I guess because I wasn't very good at it, and I figured eventually, like, the only way you're going to get better is to practice and fail. So a lot of failure to come. But anyway, yeah, playing around. This is something. This is cool. I really like that, how simplified that is. And this is something I should probably do again. It's like looking at these old things it's a good exercise. I would recommend, like, even if you're not doing Pointy Chins, save your old drawings and then look back at them every few months and see, like, what are you doing different, or what were you doing differently? Maybe in some ways you were doing things better. Just a jumping character. I guess this one's probably from reference, and this one, I don't know if this is. Maybe it is. Probably it is. Yeah. So that's it. Stay tuned for some more successes and failures, and thanks for watching.